Hello and welcome to The Pulse. These are the major stories this hour. We take you to the limits of the country as the Ghana Boundary Commission moves to quell disputes with neighboring Togo, rising from poor demarcation of our borders. Gifty and Apia is embedded with the team and brings us live updates. Coalition of La Associations accused the Ghana Armed Forces of unleashing violence on them after peaceful protests against encroachment of their land. They are demanding that Parliament probes the matter. We explore the issue further and how checking your tire pressure can save your life. We hit the roads in the best possible way with our Drive Safe campaign. This bulletin is live on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144 and across the world on myjoyonline.com. This is home of fearless, credible and independent journalism. I am Daniel Daze. Welcome. Great to have you with us. In our first story, keeping border and boundary disagreements from escalating. This afternoon, Ghana is taking steps to further prevent worsening of disputes with its neighbors in Togo after it emerged the country's borders with the neighbor are not well demarcated. Head of Security Desk, Gifty Apia, is with the team and joins us with details. Gifty, so what is the situation on the ground?
Well, Daniel, what this trip is, if I could start from there, is to organize an audit, as the Boundary Commission's head calling it, an audit of our the positioning of the pillars that demarcate where Ghana's lands end and where Togo's lands end. We went to check on these things and to talk to the people who live in the community. So what happened earlier, frankly, was that the chief of the traditional area, it's called the Leklebi traditional area, had sent a petition to which he had copied the DCE, he had copied other authorities, indicating that they needed some intervention to clear out the boundary areas. So the concern he raises is that these people are farmers, but the communities are very close. You wouldn't know, but the Leklebi traditional area sits very close to a community called Kame Sonu, which is in Togo, and it's just a step away from each other. So apparently there may be some avenue for misunderstanding, because in the minds of the people, there are areas that belong to the Togolese. In the minds of the people, there are areas that belong to the Ghanaians. But there are clear international boundaries that demarcate the two countries apart. So what the Commission is here to do is to review these demarcations and to clearly lay them out, but they will be working in collaboration with their Togolese counterparts. So today when we went out to review or to check out these pillars and whether they've been tampered with or not, there was a Togolese official who was sent to join the team to go out and to look at where our pillars are, just to be sure that this is where Ghana's land ends, this is where Togo's land ends. Now, we are done with that review at the moment, and the Brigadier General has been meeting with the traditional authorities of the Leklebi areas who have a host of concerns that they have listed. And that is the situation at the moment, Daniel.
What are some of the concerns that the people of Leklebi have been raising, Gifty?
Well, they indicated that there had been, first of all, they wanted the borders to be open, which is a different conversation altogether. The borders that have been closed because of COVID-19. They wanted that the borders be open because they were complaining about how their children are unable to go to school, and because these are other communities. So
right. Gifty and Apia there joining us from the Ghana-Togo border, specifically the Leklebi traditional area. Unfortunately, we do have a slight challenge with the telephone lines. We will try and re-establish that connection with her and get the full gamut of what the issues are over there. Now, the National Coordinator of the Ghana Boundary Commission, Brigadier General Emmanuel Kotia, is touring the area. He's leading that delegation and he's engaging these communities, as you heard Gifty speak of there. Let's hear him now.
we want to ensure that there will never be a dispute coming out of boundary pillars between Ghana and its neighbors. And that is why, that is the main object of the Ghana Boundary Commission. And we're going to ensure that that is applied to the letter. The exercise that we have come to conduct in your district, I must say your district is very fortunate to have received, and you're one of the first districts that we have come. We will be going on the ground today. We will finally assess the situation. I've been given a brief about how it looks like. But it looks like there is no major problem so far as our fiscal markings on the ground are concerned. We also use this opportunity to do community sensitization on the work of the Boundary Commission and how communities living along the Ghana boundary, Ghana borders, should live cordially with their neighbors. After all, if you look at our customs and traditions, we've lived cordially with the Togolese for a very long time. There's no need for us to have any problems so far as boundary issues are concerned. So in the long run, this is what we're going to do.
Gipti Hanopia has rejoined us on the line. Let's wrap up that conversation with her. So Gipti, beyond the closure of the borders, are there any other concerns that these people raise?
Daniel, so yes, I do have these concerns that are mainly about the boundaries, and I hope that you don't lose me again. Which is that one of them is they said that there were even instances where there were cases that were contentions over identity, you know, because they felt at the point that they were in between countries. They felt they didn't belong. They neither belong to Togo nor belong to Ghana, because when they go to Togo, you are not accepted as a Togolese. When you come to Ghana, you are not accepted as a Ghanaian. So they wanted those cleared out. And I think those are fairly cleared out. And Daniel, if you remember our maritime issue with Cote d'Ivoire, it arrived because, of course, there has been the discovery of some oil find in that area. So what are the significance of these things, which the traditional leaders are hoping that we can use, that when there are any discoveries in these areas and there are no clear demarcation of who belongs to who, it is likely to create problems. But the Civil Commission has been responding. They're telling the chief, the traditional, that they should take kind of cases with responsibility, fight or quarrel with their police over demarcation. Telling them that they should leave that to the commission, to the boundary commission to do that work. So that is one of the things that they were very particular about.
Right, Gipti, thank you very much for bringing us those updates from the border. The Coalition of La Associations want a parliamentary probe into the violence allegedly unleashed on them when they protested against what they say is an encroachment of their lands by the Ghana Armed Forces. They want the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, to immediately constitute a bipartisan committee to investigate the issues and call the military to order. The group converged and protested on some lands in contention located between Chado and Airport Hills around the military cemetery to register their displeasure over the military's encroachment, and they, together with the media, were violently removed from the premises. An action the Ghana Armed Forces has justified as necessary to protect some military installations. Let's listen to the Public Relations Officer of the Coalition, Jeffrey Tete, who spoke at a news conference.
We wish to reiterate that the people of La shall not relent in our efforts to gain control of lands fought for and gained through the toil and blood of our fathers. If the military, with their arms and ammunition, insist on illegally annexing lands bequeathed to us by our forefathers, they might as well kill every indigene of La to make that dream come true. But until they are able to do that, they can never, and I repeat, they can never take the land from its true allodial owners. The people of La were long in occupation of these lands before the West African Frontier Force, the predecessor of the Ghana Armed Forces, was even established. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, we wish to state also that the people of La have never given lands directly to the Ghana Armed Forces. It is the government of Ghana we have dealt with, and it is same we shall continue to engage in order to take back our lands. We would want to use this opportunity to commiserate with all persons who got injured through the unreasonable actions of the men in military uniform, especially our friends from the media. We also commiserate with those whose vehicles were damaged or destroyed, and to those who lost their mobile phones and other personal effects believed to have been stolen by perpetrators of the dishonorable act. We are indeed sorry. Finally, we wish to take this opportunity to call on the Speaker of Parliament to institute a bipartisan probe into the events of Thursday, April 15, 2021, in which the Ghana Armed Forces exhibited so much indiscipline and disregard for life and limbs and engaging in conduct contrary to their military code, and bring the perpetrators, especially the ones who issued out orders for these acts, to book in accordance with the laws of Ghana.
Now, the coalition is also demanding that the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abu-Jinapor, sticks to a consensus reached between the La Traditional Council, the military and government days before the 2020 elections to hand the land back to the people of La.
It is interesting to note that just a day after the unfortunate incident, members of the La Traditional Council were invited to meet the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, the Honorable Samuel Abu-Jinapor, to discuss issues surrounding the land in contention. It was our expectation that the Honorable Minister would engineer the implementation of the laudable consensus engineered by his predecessor with the interested parties, which included the Ghana Armed Forces, made on November 27, 2020, after a 2-year-long deliberation on the subject. However, briefing we have received from the La Traditional Council indicates a contrary view from the Minister. The Coalition of La Associations wishes to inform the Minister and government that the good people of La will not countenance anything short of the implementation of the consensus already reached. I would emphasize on that. The Coalition of La Associations wishes to inform the Minister and government that the people of La will not countenance anything short of the implementation of the consensus already reached. It is our firm view that the consensus reached at the meeting with the previous Minister of Lands, at the meeting at which all interested parties were present, is binding on the current minister and he cannot depart from it. Any attempt at altering those decisions or even trying to reopen fresh negotiations on the subject matter would not only be a sign of disrespect to the chiefs and people of La, but also make a mockery of the time-consuming 2-year-long consensus building process engaged in by all interested parties. Ladies and gentlemen, let it not be said that the government, led by His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, deceived the people of La by making false promises in order to make a political gain at the 2020 elections, only to turn around and renege on those promises after achieving victory at the polls.
Meanwhile, they have described the conduct of the military as unruly and their press release explaining what happened as completely false.
You would recall that exactly a week ago, a group of soldiers from the Ghana Armed Forces were deployed to brutalize and terrorize the people of La, as well as some media personnel who had gone to Plecho on a routine visit to the land with the support of the Traditional Council. The actions of the Ghana Armed Forces, which received so much media attention, can best be described as dishonorable, and the perpetrators of that act should be bowing their heads in shame.
Now, joining us via Zoom is Ni Obwo Fredman Afol. He's chairman for the La Trustee Development, for some updates. Now, we understand the trust has been having a series of meetings with government and the military on the matter. Can you update us on what these meetings have achieved?
Thank you very much, my brother, for bringing me on to the program. Indeed, I'm the chairman of the East Dadikotopon Development Trust, as you said. But there's a point of correction here. The trust in itself has not been holding any meetings with the government, neither have we been holding meetings with the military. What I, as a representative of the trust, has been doing is to join the chiefs and other members of the La Fraternity or the La Traditional Council to meet with the minister, as has been said by the coalition. As has been said by the coalition. Like they said, it's been 2 years of arduous in and out of negotiations here and there until the 27th of November when the pronouncement was made.
Right. Now, tell us about this pronouncement, Ni, and what exactly was agreed from these meetings or at these meetings?
Okay. At the meeting, with all stakeholders present, including representatives of the military high command, it was agreed that there are areas that we could deal with. One, we have a place or a part of it where we call the Beijing Barracks. There are about 86 acres of land there. The military is occupying 30 acres of that land. It was agreed that 56 acres of that portion of the 86 was coming back to us. There's a place they call the stable area. There we have 6 acres of land in that area, and another 26 close by where they have their sewage. They have their sewage. All these areas don't fall within the military, within the military acquisition, so to say. That is where the military occupy. That portion is purely for the last 2, and it is expected that the 6 plus 26 was also coming back to us. Now, after that is that long stretch of 375 acres of land, which is very close to the military. Out of that, a 75 acre of land was made available as a buffer for the military. 250 is coming to us as what is to be released. And then the 50 acres earmarked or left for the military cemetery. Now, outside that is the Esigbedema Airport Hills land across the strait. There's about 60 acres of land that will also come to us. Now, after that point, we have to move on to the beach area where we have the Laboma Beach Resort. There is a 33-acre land there that does not fall within the military occupation, and then outside their boundaries is another 11-acre land that they should not also touch.
Right, so all these lands, I understand, must come to you. What has changed since the 27th of November, which has occasioned, first of all, what happened when the military is said to have unleashed violence on you, and which has led to today's news conference? What has changed?
Okay, on the back of 27th November 2020 was the agreement by all stakeholders to meet on the 4th of December and then sign the MOU that will cover, that was going to consummate all what has been done across the 2 years. We were invited on the day around 10. The MOU was to be signed at 11 a.m. But just when the chiefs were ready, those of us who joined them have also been alerted and were ready. A call came through that the signing of the MOU was to be put on hold till further notice. We were surprised because we don't know where that was coming from. And that is what it has been since then. It is worthy to note that at our meeting, it was agreed by all parties that nobody was to step onto the land. No constructions were to go on until the final determination or the final consummation of what has been agreed upon.
Now, has any construction gone on? Has anything of the sort happened, since you don't have any documentation currently to protect your ownership of the land, which would inform your fear or your concern that the ministry is not keeping to what was agreed on the 27th of November?
For us, it was the MOU, the signing of the MOU, which was going to sort everything out. But then we should not lose sight of the fact that we have all agreed. We came to a consensus that no parties was to go on there and start the construction. We all note that it was after the 4th of December into the beginning of 2021 when the military started grading the place and then doing all what is going on there.
Okay. Okay. So currently, after you saw this, did you reach out to the ministry? Has any work been done to continue the process that was halted on the 4th of December?
That is a week ago tomorrow. Last Friday, we met with the minister. Our concerns were raised with him. And so then at the sitting, at the ministry, the sitting minister, Honorable Abu Jinapo, gave instructions that a letter must be drafted for him to sign, which was to be forwarded to his colleague minister, that is the Minister of Defense, to ask the military to desist from what they are doing, to stop them from the continued construction. And so this is what has transpired so far.
What would then inform today's protest? It looks to me like the minister is sticking to the agreement and he is making moves from what you are saying to honor what was agreed on the 27th of November. Why are you currently asking for the minister to make sure that he does that? Why are you asking for this parliamentary probe?
Yes, the request for a parliamentary probe comes on the back of the brutalities that were visited on our people and then the media. Your own colleagues were there. Some of them were brutalized to the point where they had cuts and bruises and wounds all over their bodies. Even though what I said happened at the last meeting, we've been sending people around, and then there is evidence, there is information trickling in that there are still skirmishes going on there. There are still people in some areas, inclusive of the 200 and 375 acres, who are still working there. And this is quite agitative. I believe this is what is driving the youth to still send a warning out or to send the signals out that we are still not very comfortable with the actions of the military. But then the probe is to go into who ordered the troops to come on and brutalize innocent civilians when they were defenseless, they were unarmed, and they were not doing anything untoward, but just to pay a visit to land that belongs to them.
But quickly on that issue about the brutality that was meted out to you, allegedly, and why would you go to a military installation if you are negotiating with the military on one table? We know that security installations are to be protected religiously by these men of uniform. Why did you go there in the first place?
Thank you very much. A point of correction. We didn't go to any military installations. We were not there at Bema camp. We didn't go near any armory or magazine or any military installation. We went onto bare land. We went to Plateau. That place is called Plateau. We went onto bare land that is virgin, that has nothing there apart from trees, shrub, and bush. And nobody can tell us there was any military installations there.
Respectfully,
so if the military came up saying that we were there at any military installations, that is palpable falsehood.
Respectfully, you are calling it bare land by your assessment, are you not?
Yes, by what it is, not my assessment, by what it is, because that is what it is. Your own colleagues, the media people who went there, will bear witness to what I'm saying.
But I'm simply asking the question because as much as I respect my colleagues of the media who went with you, I don't know if any of us are close with the expertise to tell us if there were some things, for instance, buried there or there was any sort of installation which we cannot see. We don't know if it was a training ground for military. We don't know exactly what the land had been used for. So your description of the place as bare land is what I'm pointing to you could be very subjective. Is that not the case, Nee?
No, that is rather objective because I know that it has never been any military training grounds. We know where the military training grounds have been. We know where their shooting ranges have been. The old one that was moved to the beach. We know all that. We know where the magazine is. We know where their armory is. This has been bare land. If indeed, like you're asking, or we want to know, if indeed there are any military installations there may be any ammunition, how could they even go and be developing? It's still, what do you call it? Civilians that they are deploying and working there. What is happening there is not military operation. It is construction that is going on. It is development that is going on there.
I'm simply pointing out to you, Nee, that you would have to be a security expert to tell me that it is or it is not a military installation. But I respect the views that you espouse here. You're quite experienced in the area. I simply want to know, finally, if you are aware, because this is what our sources from within the ministry are telling us, are you aware that there is a meeting set up between the traditional council, the trust, and the military scheduled for tomorrow? Are you aware of this?
Yes, I'm aware of it. I'm part of the meeting.
Right.
That comes on the back of the meeting we had with the minister last week, Friday. So I'll be there.
Right. And so did you hold this meeting, this news conference, knowing that there was a meeting tomorrow? And if that is the case, would that not be bad faith?
I wouldn't say that is bad faith. If we are talking about bad faith, it is the military that has shown bad faith. It is them who have gone along to breach whatever agreement that or accords that we came to since November 2020. That is 27th November 2020. So we have not acted in bad faith at all. All what we have done today is to draw the attention to all and sundry that there are those who are breaching the accord, the agreement. Are those who are in green uniform, who are brutalizing and terrorizing people because they want to forcibly take their land. So we have not acted in bad faith at all.
Neil Wilfred Manafo, thank you very much for joining us on The Pulse today. We move to other stories, and the Chief of Staff, Akosua Frema Osei Pare, has charged all regional ministers to build consensus with chiefs and other stakeholders within their jurisdictions in the pursuit of government policies and programs. In the past few weeks, several traders have been cleared for major streets in Accra as part of the regional ministers' Making Accra Work project, with some, including General Secretary of the governing MPP, criticizing his style. But addressing a regional ministers and chief directors conference, Madame Osei Pare noted that consensus building is at the heart of effective policy implementation and thus must be visible and must be visibly pursued by the ministers in their work.
So the political head of the region, you must take your relationship with the chiefs and other opinion leaders in the region very seriously. You should have cordial relationship so as to elicit their necessary support. And this may involve building consensus with them. This may even involve material support in pursuit of any development agenda. This is also important to institute structures to receive information and feedback on some of the policies and programs being implemented by the RCC and by other agents of government. Dear participants, one phenomenon of grave concern in the Public Service Administration is the lack of communication, non-acknowledgement to correspondence from stakeholders and officialdom of state and non-state actors alike. Let us be very responsive in this regard, so that actions which ought to be taken are not unnecessarily delayed or not taken at all.
On his part, Local Government Minister Dan Botwe said government will actively build the capacity of regional coordinating councils to be able to engender public participation in development.
They said there are about 12 new regional ministers, only 4 were retained. And then we have to, this level. We invited 16 deans of MMCs, as they call themselves. That's 1 rep from each region to be part of it. Then after Mr. President's appointment or reappointment of the DCs, such a thing also be held. We are the local government service who are had the mandate to develop the capacities of all political actors in the line. So it's important. We're really going to, as it were, keep on improving upon their capacity to be able to perform, because the laws are there. What is supposed to do are there. So it's a measure of how are we going, but how are we performing, and that's why we believe we should build their capacities. We have the Institute of Local Government Studies, one in Accra, one in Tamale. Government is helping them, putting up substructures and strengthening them so that they can also offer training from an assemblyman to the chief director within the local government. All of them should continuously, their capacity should continuously be built. And then comes the supervision and the role. That's where we come in to make sure that all of them work as to what their mandate is, and just to satisfy their space. In the coordinated program agenda for coordinated program for 2024, it's clear at the end of the day to make sure that there's popular participation and the deliverables are met, and the ordinary Ghanaians should feel the presence of governance, and governance helping them to do what they themselves cannot do, and make sure that we work to meet their aspirations. So that's what's supposed to be done, and that's the one we are committed in doing that. I'm very clear in my mind what we are supposed to do, and we shall offer the necessary leadership to make sure we achieve that.
Pulse with me, Daniel Jazzy. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us on The Pulse. To education now, and the Ghana National Association of Teachers is asking the government to urgently release books based on the new curriculum to teachers. According to the association, the delay in releasing the books is affecting academic work because teachers have to fall on manuals or materials that are not prescribed. Central Regional Chairman of the association, Reverend Dr. Isaac Owusu, said this as the 6th Quadrennial Delegate Conference of the association in Cape Coast. Richard Kojo-Nyako has the rest of the story.
The new curriculum was designed in 2019 as part of the learning experiences necessary to equip school pupils and students for higher education and the world of work. Following the development of the Common Core Program curriculum, 153,000 teachers across the country, educational authorities say, received the initial training based on the curriculum. But the Ghana National Association of Teachers says the books based on the curriculum are yet to be supplied to the schools to enable teachers and the pupils to use. Central Regional Chairman of NAT, Reverend Dr. Isaac Owusu, at the 6th Quadrennial Delegate Conference in Cape Coast appealed to the employers to act now.
The issue of textbook for the new curriculum at the primary and KG level, we started this implementation 2019. And we are in 2021 now. And as I speak to you, the teachers are only using the manual that was given to them at the training workshop. And so we do not know why, up to now, the employer is not giving the student and the teachers textbook and the teacher's guide. If you look at accommodation situation for teachers in the country, it's another challenge. You see, promotion and upgrading, another challenge. So, you know, all that we are saying is that we are appealing to the employer and the government of Ghana to come to the aid of the teachers so that we all live in a harmonious workplace or work environment to do our part as teachers to help Mother Ghana.
Deputy General Secretary of NAT in charge of Administration and Labour Relations, Daniel Afedu, assured members of the association a committee has been put in place to look into the retirement packages of teachers.
Issues of pension is high agenda on our table. As I speak, the issue that the regional chairman referred to about the payment of the past credit, there is a committee at the national level which is working on, and it has to do with the law. And there is a proposal that if there is a law that is making people worse off than they found themselves, either the law is amended or something else is done to make the lives of our people better. Because if someone has retired in 2020 and has received something that cannot take him home, as the crosser chairman, General Secretary will say, Kofi Kowu.
Let's explore this issue further, and joining us on the program is John Annan. He's the Acting Executive Director, or the Director General, pardon me, for the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, NACA. Mr. Annan, thanks for joining us. Why have the textbooks delayed?
Hello.
Mr. Annan, you're on air.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. With regards to the textbook issue, when the news was going on, I heard something like Common Core. Common Core is meant for JHS, which we have not even kick-started. And when we talk about the KG and the primary school, that is a standard-based curriculum. So the Common Core is also standard-based. With practice regarding textbook provision for curriculum for teachers, normally when the curriculum is completed, before panels are put in place to write textbooks using the curriculum outline. That has been the practice over the years. This time around, and that one too was government of Ghana that had the mandate to do that. But this time around, we have textbook policy that has entrusted the writing and publishing of books in the hands of the private sector, just promoting the private sector as the engine of growth. So government no longer has a mandate in the publishing, printing, and then probably distribution of books. With the standard-based curriculum for KG and primary, in April 2019, it was adored by Ghana Education Service. And publishers, as our mandate, we met them and then gave them orientation and supply them with the curriculum so that they will go and get writers to write the books that will come along with the presentation in September 2019. We gave them the submission process and the guidelines that they needed to follow. Quite unfortunate, the books that started coming for us to assess and approve, majority of the books were written based on objective-based curriculum. So that could not be used for standard-based curriculum. As a result, most of them were rejected at the first stage of the submission. That was the process that went on until COVID even came in March 2020 to make schools close down. Now, currently, as I sit here, we have been able to approve over 1,100 books on the KG and primary school standard-based curriculum. Books that are meant to be used by teachers in the classroom, by the provision made by the policy, textbook policy, those whose books have been assessed and approved, they need to go to the Ministry of Education and pick tender forms to bid for government to buy their books for distribution. I am aware that this process has reached almost the concluding stage, and government is almost at the stage of purchasing these books for distribution and supply to schools so that teachers will use. It is the process that has delayed, but it is not that people have not been committed to what they are expected to. Yes, we will sympathize with our teachers that you start using a curriculum and the requisite material that you are supposed to use is not there or not available. And for the teachers, this may not be a major problem because the curriculum is quite explicit. And if you are to teach a topic, we are much aware as professionals. Textbooks are mainly reference books, and you can have other alternatives where you can get the content that you need to teach. With the curriculum as a guide, it tells you exactly the aspect of the content that you have to teach. But the children are those that are rather suffering, because if your teacher teaches and you are unable to get everything clear, you are supposed to get some textbook for reinforcement, to read for better understanding, and that is what is not there. All that we can say is that the situation is under control, and there is a process that the purchasing and distribution of this book have to go through, which is under control. So we plead with them to exercise some small patience, and very soon it will be okay.
For those who may not be so familiar with the school curriculums and reopening times and when this particular syllabus started, for how long, Mr. Annan, have these children been suffering?
Yeah, thank you so much. Like I narrated, as of now, MOE is almost at the concluding stage. You know, this time around in Ghana, we have the procurement law. You can't just get up and procure something or buy something. So they are following the procurement process. And that is the Ministry of Education. I am at NACA. We develop the curriculum, and we are supposed to assess books and approve. But we do not recommend books. We only assess and approve. And the private sector publishers are those who are supposed to write the books, submit to NACA, and then we go through the approval processes.
Right. My question, Mr. Annan, was for how long? You said earlier that the teachers may be fine, but the children are suffering. For how long have the children been suffering? How many terms? How many months?
Well, what I can say is that when it started the 2019 September, it was in March that in the second term, I think the middle of the second term, that the COVID crisis came. And if my memory serves me right, on the 15th of March was when the president announced on the 15th of March, Sunday evening, that from the 16th, schools should close down. And schools reopened in January 2021, that they were asked to go back to school. And if we are to put those things, I think even those who were supposed, the various classes in which the children are, or the children were, they were promoted in a wholesale manner. So almost everybody moved to the next stage, and that is where they are. And the first term of their new class, where they are supposed to do recovery learning, is where the primary schools and KG, they are vacated now. But the junior high school, they are still in school, and they have not yet vacated, but they are having a semester program. But we are much aware that government very soon will finish and the books come.
So, Mr. Annan, they have been suffering since 2019 September.
Hello?
Mr. Annan, they've been suffering since September 2019, from your words.
They have not been suffering.
I'm simply using your words here. There were students who wrote the BEC in 2020. Will they fall under this category of people who did not have the textbooks to use at home? And how were they to study without the textbooks?
JHS is using old curriculum. And the old curriculum, they already have books since 2007.
I just needed that clarity. Thank you.
JHS curriculum has not been changed. And even for public education, when the new curriculum comes, it starts from a certain grade level. So for the JHS, because it's an exit phase, it's only Form 1s who will start the use of the new curriculum.
Right.
Those in Form 2 and Form 3 will continue with the old curriculum, because you can't change the curriculum midway and examine them on it.
Right.
So they will not be affected in any way.
Right.
It's only the Form 1s that will start the new curriculum.
Right. Just needed that clarity.
The JHS one, now if they are to start, because of the recovery of learning loss that is going on, if they are to start the curriculum, we have already prepared learners resource pack and teachers resource pack accompanying the curriculum, because of the lessons learned from the primary school implementation, where the publishers were unable to meet the timeline so that books will be made available for the people. So we have already prepared this one that will accompany the new curriculum, so that the teachers will have a resource pack, which is more or less like a teacher's guide, and the learners will also have learner's pack, which is more or less like a textbook, and they will be using until publishers are able to fill in the gap.
When will the textbooks arrive, Mr. Annan?
That is a question for the Ministry of Education.
In which you work, Mr. Annan, as an organization operating under the ministry?
I am working as an agency.
Yes, reporting to the Ministry of Education.
There are 17 agents.
Reporting to the Ministry of Education, Mr. Annan.
It's not my mandate to purchase book, procure book for school. You know, we develop the curriculum. The implementation agency is the Ghana Education Service. So
right. I understand that the hierarchy, if I may.
Of the material.
Mr. Annan, if I may, I understand the organogram of the ministry, but on the website it says that you report to the ministry, which means that, basically speaking, you are a part of that organization, which is why I'm asking you if you are aware.
Thank you so much. I report to the minister based on my mandate. And my mandate is to develop curriculum and assessment standards for pre-tertiary institutions other than technical and vocational institutions. So when I develop the curriculum, I report that I've completed, then I hand it over. And that is where my mandate ends. If it comes to the implementation, it's the Ghana Education Service. If it comes to procurement of other materials and other things, resources for the school, that's the ministry. And then the agency responsible for that implementation. So my mandate has ended when I've completed the curriculum and handed it over.
Right, so in simple terms, you don't know when they'll get the books?
I have not said so. I'm saying my mandate has ended. So if you want to know when the book will come, either you call GES or the ministry, because that is their mandate. My mandate is not to distribute any book to any school, because there's no school that works under my agency.
Mr. John Annan, thank you very much for joining us on The Pulse. You're live on the JoyNews channel. Let's stay with education. And the head marshal of the Queen of Peace RCJHS, Mr. Paul Dramina, was found hanging dead on a mango tree behind his own fence wall at Rioso, a suburb of Techiman in the Bono East region. The said incident has thrown the school in a state of shock, as both teaching and learning have since been heavily affected due to the demise of the 45-year-old. Correspondent Anna Sabit has been speaking with some teachers of the school and came through with the following report.
Headmaster of the Queen of Peace RC Junior High School reportedly committed suicide at about 16 hours GMT on Monday. Mr. Paul Dramina was in the school on Monday before the said incident happened.
He came to school on that fateful day and then said he had a discussion with the bishop. So that was what he said, and then went away. That was the last that we saw or heard from him.
The school is currently in a state of shock at the incident, with teaching and learning heavily affected. Mr. Ebua Henry Jr. teaches English in the school.
Mr. Dramana is very friendly. Anytime he comes, he inquires from us, our well-being. We exchange some pleasantries, and then he goes back to his office. Yes, as you can see, we are all disturbed. Yes, and shocked. You can see shock written on our faces.
But how was Mr. Dramana's relationship with the teaching staff before the unfortunate incident occurred? Madam Theresa Sapon shares with us her fondest memories of the late headmaster.
You see, Master, should I say he's my junior brother? I know him before he came as a head. So Master is my colleague, is my brother, he's my everything. He's my friend too. We chat like brother and sister. So, I've missed him a lot.
Tufo Isaac, also a mathematics tutor in the school, tells JoyNews that though Mr. Dramana was a man of few words, he was very lively with academic works.
I was his secretary when he was the vice chairman, vice cathedral youth chairman. I was his secretary before coming here. Apparently, we were working hand in hand. He used to call for meetings. If anything bothers him, he'll call for a meeting, academic board, I need to meet you. In fact, he's a reserved type, as we all know, but when it comes to meetings or when something is bothering him concerning the school, we call for a meeting. But we are mourning, we are all saddened, and we are in a state of shock.
Isaac, also known as T.I., recollects his last encounter with the late head teacher of the school.
I had 3 encounters with him on Monday. When I came to school in the morning, I went to his office. He asked of my father's condition because my father had already been admitted at the hospital. So he asked how my father was faring on Monday morning. And I told him, oh, by God's grace, he's doing good. In the afternoon, he came to my table over here and told me that he was going to print some documents. That was the last statement or the last conversation I had with him. In fact, I don't know, and only God can tell.
Now, contrary to an earlier report that Mr. Dramana hanged himself in the school's staff common room, T.I. says the incident happened close to Mr. Dramana's residence.
Let's all consider it as fallacy or lies because it didn't happen in the school. All the teachers were around. I was the last teacher to leave school because I had afternoon classes with the kids. And that took me, or I traveled to 4 o'clock in the evening, 4 o'clock p.m. And he wasn't around by then. I don't know why this fake news is circulating that he hanged himself in the school and the student came. So if a student came to find out in the staff common room, the question is, where were the teachers? Where were the teachers by then? So it didn't happen here.
He, however, calls on the police to hasten investigations in order to unravel the actual cause of Mr. Dramana's death. Reporting for JoyNews, Anas Sabit, Tichiman.
May his soul rest in perfect peace. Now, the content of Ghana's English pupils' Book 1, 2, and 3 displayed gross gender bias that reinforces the stereotypical roles of males and females in the Ghanaian society. This is the conclusion of a research by the Department of Publishing Studies of Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. The research published in the Journal of Science and Technology sought to analyze the content of Ghana's English pupils' books 1, 2, and 3 for gender stereotyping. Love FM's Kwesi Debra has more.
The research involved visual analysis of male and female characters as well as the occupational roles depicted for males and females. Other conventional analysis were also performed on the activities engaged in by the males and females.
The issue of stereotyping had been talked about in academia for long, and international literature was hammering every time UN issues, be careful how you stereotypically look at things and all those things. So there was the need for us to look at it from the lower level to see if our perception about the gender issue comes from the books that we're using.
the end of the day. The researchers found that males appeared 685 times as compared to their female counterparts, 335 times.
What we found from our work was that we used to we give the male gender more active role in the work that the textbooks were presenting. So you realize that in terms of appearances, in terms of names or activities, you realize more male activities were recorded than female. And in certain corteses, especially with even profession, certain professions were normally associated with men rather than making it a neutral profession where everybody can go in. So you take something like the medical field, a doctor, you see men being drawn or portrayed as medical doctors, and the females being portrayed as nurses.
Mr. Francis Nunu is urging the Ministry of Education to pay more attention to the contents of these government-approved textbooks.
The idea was to, one, let writers be aware that this could have dire consequences on the young people who is reading. So authors should be careful, and the ministry too was supposed to take a keen interest in what is being produced, so that they scrutinize and make sure that whatever that we are feeding our young ones with will not have adverse effect on their way of thinking.
You're live on the Pulse with me, Daniel Dazi. Stay with us. And the Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Osei-Mensah says his administration will sternly deal with metropolitan, municipal and district chief executives engaged in illegal mining. This comes after several complaints about the involvement of heads of assemblies in illegal mining in that region. According to the minister, involvement in such activities thwarts efforts to deal with the menace. Mr. Osei-Mensah, who spoke to the media on the sidelines of a tree planting to observe World Earth Day at Lake Bosumtwi, says MMDCEs who show little interest in clamping down on the activities will also be penalized.
The MMDCEs, anybody who engages in activities of illegal mining, will do with the person sternly, because you see, if the president says he's put the presidency on the line to fight against illegal mining, and we are the representative of the president, and we are rather engaging in galamsey, then at least we are not faithful to the president, and we cannot represent the president. If we want to represent the president, then we should do what the president asks us to do, and not to do otherwise. For instance, I'm the chairman of the Regional Security Council. The MMDCs are also the chair of the Metro, Municipal and District Security Councils. So they will have to take action. Once the person takes action, you cannot maybe deal with the person or take sanctions against the person. For instance, I can deal with it today. You know, illegal mining is like people engaging in black marketing. You arrest the person here today, next time he is at the other side, engaging in the black marketing activity. So what their responsibility is to ensure that any time they hear or find out that people are doing illegal mining, once they are the head of the various security councils, they should draw the attention of the police and the military. For the military, they should draw my attention, because military is not under the MMDCs. They are normally under the regional ministers. But the police, the district police commander, in some cases, they have even divisional commanders. Then they can draw their attention, and then they go for them.
Thank you. You're live on the Pulse with me, Daniel Dazi. There's a lot more coming up on the show. We just received a statement from the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, and it is directed to the public as a directive to suspend reconnaissance and or prospecting activities in all forest reserves across the country. I'm going to read to you some sections of it. It says, whereas the final communique on the National Consultative Dialogue on Small-Scale Mining held at Accra International Conference Center on 14th and 15th April 2021, in paragraph 12, emphatically charged government to take steps to put in place systems that would rigidly apply the law, noting particularly the sanctions or penalties imposed by Act 995 to all those who infringe the law irrespective of political color or socio-economic status or class. Indeed, the better placed in society who ought to know better should have the most punitive of the penalties applied to them. Now, it also says, whereas the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources has a mandate to ensure the sustainable management and utilization of the nation's lands, forests, and wildlife resources, as well as the efficient management of the mineral resources for socio-economic growth and development, and whereas the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources has taken note of the unfortunate and unlawful practice of some persons and or companies acquiring licenses under the pretext of undertaking reconnaissance and or prospecting in forest reserves, and yet proceed to engage in illegal mining in such forest reserves with its obvious adverse consequences on the environment, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources hereby directs persons and or all companies engaged in reconnaissance and or prospecting in forest reserves with or without legal authorization to suspend such activities until further notice. Here's where we need to place some emphasis. Whether or not you have legal authorizations, you are to suspend any prospecting and reconnaissance in forest reserves. It says the ministry has further directed the Minerals Commission with immediate effect not to accept, process and or recommend the grant, including renewal and or extension of reconnaissance and prospecting licenses in forest reserves. So first of all, if you have a license, whether you have a license or not, you are not to do any prospecting or reconnaissance. They also say that the Minerals Commission should not grant any further licenses, and it says, for the avoidance of doubt, except as directed by the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources in writing, all activities and operations in respect of any reconnaissance or prospecting licenses in forest reserves are hereby suspended until further notice. It says the Minister for Land and Natural Resources accordingly hereby gives persons and companies engaged in reconnaissance or prospecting in forest reserves 7 days from the date of the publication of this notice, which is today, to cease their operations and evacuate their equipment accordingly. The Minister has served notice and and requested the various regional security councils to strictly enforce these directives. So I'm going to give you this statement in 3 quick points. First of all, if you are, okay, rather than do that, let me speak to George Mekuduka, who is Deputy Minister Designate for Land and Natural Resources, who has agreed to speak to this matter. First of all, congratulations on your appointment, Mr. Mekuduka.
My brother.
You have to speak up. I said congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you, my brother. I do appreciate it.
So am I speaking to you as Minister Designate, or I'm speaking to you as member of the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament? Right, let's just go ahead. What does the statement mean?
Which one are you interested?
I think a Deputy Minister Designate is more powerful.
I like that.
What does this statement mean? What are you asking the public to do?
Yes, let's say afternoon to your cherished viewer. And also thank you for the congratulatory message just proffered on me. I cherish it. Yes, this is to indeed to the public. Yes, the government appreciates the effort for Ghanaians making to mining the respective legal concessions designated to them, but not to mine irresponsibly. the minister responsible for lands and natural resources has noticed or indicated that it is clear for us to be mindful of whatever license we seek to acquire. That you acquire a license specifically for a duty you request for. You don't acquire a license and do otherwise. People acquire license to prospect on a designated land or an area. Then they tend to use the prospecting license to mine. And that is the concern of the Minister, Honorable Samuel Abu-Jinapor, and has directly and clearly, outlined that those seeking for an approval to be giving a prospecting license should have acquired the license for the purposes they sought to use the license for. But unfortunately, these or some of these concessionaires acquired the license to do otherwise. And that is why they put a ban on any prospecting license in our respective forests. And just in a way going to allow him and his outfit to regularize the sector in terms of acquisition of prospecting licenses.
How long do we expect to see this ban in place?
Depending on how we comply with the kind of advice put out there. If we comply and we get all the database, available, we'll do the regularization and get the things running. And the interest of the government is to get mining done responsibly, and that is what we can do. So he's seeking to get the sector well regularized.
Okay, so I would assume then that it's going to be indefinite until the regularization of the sector is done, as you indicate.
You have put it right, my brother.
Okay. How is the ministry going to enforce this ban, especially after the 7 days grace period, if I can call it that, they've been given for all persons to evacuate their equipment?
Yes, there is a division inspectorate at the Minerals Commission. There is also security apparatus available. So we're going to collaborate with all the agencies that are responsible for protecting our laws to ensure that this order is adhered to.
Now, Mr. Duka, I would direct this to you as well, because you're a member of parliament of an area which heavily depends on mining, basically for its life force. When you stop work like this, are you not affecting legitimate businessmen out there who are doing their work? Are you not punishing them for the wrongs of others who are working illegally?
My brother, the minister and the technocrats investigated this matter extensively before bringing out this publication. And it will interest you to know that most of the prospecting licenses available, after going through monitoring and evaluation, we realized that they were not using them for the purposes of which the licenses were acquired. So there was a need, and this is specifically for those mining in the forest zone and not mining in general. So he's not putting a ban on mining in general, but those prospecting in the forest zone, and that is what he's doing. So it is not mining, putting a ban on mining. No.
Just out of curiosity, Mr. Duka, from your investigations in the ministry and from Mr. Jinapor's investigations, about how many companies have you found will be affected by this ban?
I cannot put out the figures because your platform is a very big platform of which you cannot speculate. And unfortunately, I'm not having the document before me, but I can give out the document soon for for you to also inform your viewers. So I know whatever you put out there is always credible, and we always trust the credibility of your aspect. So we wouldn't want to speculate at this point in time. So you give me some time to give you the details.
We'll be very grateful, Mr. Duka. We'll be very grateful, Mr. Duka. Before you go, though, there was a news conference held today by the Coalition of La Associations. They have some questions about some encroachment of land. They have differences with the military. Your minister was named specifically, and he was urged to obey or follow some agreements that were made on 27th November. Has this news conference come to the minister's notice? Is the minister going to take any specific action concerning these people's concerns?
As I speak with you, the minister is engaging all the stakeholders. He's called for calm, and he's, in a way, finding solutions to the matter immediately. And I can trust him. He's working at it and abreast of the issues. And I believe very soon all tensions will be calmed.
Right. So will these people have their lands restored to them?
The solution will come out of the deliberation. So I can possibly not give you the outcome now until after the deliberation.
Right. And these deliberations, I assume, are going to continue in that meeting that has been called for tomorrow?
It will continue. You know, we're interested in meeting all stakeholders. We're not going to just put the law, anyhow. We have to engage and to come up with a possible, solution to the matter. So it's not a matter of just sitting somewhere to, in a way, extend your muzzle and say, yes, give it to this one. You have to find out a possible and lasting solution to solve this thing. You know, this matter keeps coming up anytime you have a change of government, a change of, positions here and there. So it's been running as far as the ministry is concerned. And I haven't served on the mines and energy. Sometimes we meet some of these occurrences. So I believe the minister, with his experience as a lawyer, is going through some of these things, and I believe we will come up with a possible solution to the matter.
Pardon me, sir. I'm simply going along this tangent because your minister has been named specifically in some of these issues. So I just want to know, out of curiosity, is it true that he mentioned that he would write a letter or have a letter drafted, sending it to the defense ministry and asking the military to take certain actions? Did the minister make that statement? Because that is the claim that the La trustees are saying, that the minister said he was going to write a letter to the defense minister to ask the military to stop any development on these lands in contention.
So far, I've not seen the minister speculate on any matter. Anything that you want to make officially, he will actually make everything public as he's made this publication. So I don't think we can just conjecture on the part of the minister. I believe, take it from me, if he wants to do anything, he wouldn't hesitate to bring it public. And as transparent as he is, I don't think he'll be ready to speculate at any point.
Okay, so we are not in a position of to know or know such?
Not that, but we can conclude on the matter after all meetings with key people that involved. And that's what is before me. But apart from that, I don't know anything of writing the letter to announce it. That's all.
George Mekuduka, thank you very much, and congratulations once again on your appointment. You're live on the pulse here on Joy News. Now, some 850 security personnel drawn from the Army, Police, Fire Service, Immigration this morning started an ambitious exercise to make Accra the cleanest city in West Africa. The project under the Make the Greater Accra Work Again agenda will be done every week to rid the city of filth. Municipal Chief Executive for Ayawaso Central, Alhaji Mohammed Kwei, says the exercise will be sustained until the city is clean.
The Bible says cleanliness is next to godliness. So we are doing this even to show to God that really we are doing towards His will, and we are doing this towards thereafter. And then also, you see, this is Paloma, where everybody, outsiders, come. And how the regional minister saw here is not fine at all. It's not good at all. He doesn't speak well of Ghana, particularly Accra. So he said today is a day that we should gather so that we do this cleaning. It will be continuous days, but not every day. Yes, we shall schedule time that we shall be coming. And then we shall involve people around here. The people around here. Because for this, we have never informed them at all. We want them to see military people, immigration, fire service, prisons, and the assemblies. For them, if today we call them, nobody will say no. They will see that, oh, these people even who are not with us here, but they have come all the way to clean. So let us also join them.
We stick with the area of keeping cities clean, and sanitation giant Zoomland Ghana Limited is of the view that the reduction in number of active cases of COVID-19 must be partly attributed to the monthly disinfection of Kotoka International Airport, KIA. The reduction in active case numbers has also been attributed to an increase in compliance to safety protocols and the vaccination exercise by leadership of the Ghana Health Service. The company, however, believes they have played a key role in the development. The JoyNews team was present at the exercise. Here's what we observed.
The 2-hour exercise, which was the fourth to be undertaken by the company this year, covered Terminals 1 and 3. The operation took care of every facility within the scope of these two terminals: offices, washrooms, restaurants, arrivals and departure halls, among others. The objective was to ensure that all surfaces and open spaces that have come into contact with viruses are rendered inactive to protect users of the airport. According to Business Development Manager of Vector Control Unit at Sumlion Akusha Kunedu Yeboah, the exercise was to augment the central government's efforts at curbing the spread of the virus.
And so today we are doing Terminal 1 and Terminal 3. We are disinfecting every facility within the scope of Terminals 1 and 3. And we are doing this as our way of augmenting the government's efforts to reduce the spread of the COVID, focus on the airport.
So how do you reduce the spread of COVID? When you say you are doing this to reduce the spread of COVID, how?
Okay, so we know how the mode of transmission of this virus, and we know that it is spread through surfaces, and yes, so we disinfect surfaces and spaces all within the airport to ensure that any contaminated place has been with any viruses have been made, viruses on any contaminated spaces have been made inactive. Yeah.
So how often is this exercise?
We do this every month on a monthly basis.
So what has been the effect or the results from the previous exercise?
Okay, so far we know very well that the airport is one hotspot, but because we do this on a very regular basis, the monthly basis, we know that the spread and the extent to which people would have caught the virus within the space is on the minimal, yes.
So would you say the previous?
We do it every month, so this is the fourth.
You mentioned that you've done Terminals 1 and 3 today.
Yes. We are about to do Terminal 3 now.
The regional. And then when are you doing the rest of the regional airport?
Okay.
Are we doing the rest?
The regional ones are also being done. We started last week, and we are continuing the rest of the facilities for the Kotoka International Airport tomorrow. We started yesterday, and we're doing some today, and we'll finish it up tomorrow.
So aside from disinfecting the facility, what next? what do after disinfecting the facility in a month? So from the rest of the 31 days, what should happen?
We know that the facility itself does a mechanical exercise on a daily basis. We come on a scheduled monthly time to do a holistic one, and so it goes on unabated. It continues unabated. So every 30 days we come to renew our exercise, our project.
So are you doing only Accra or all the?
We are doing all.
Time for our Drive Safe campaign, and today we're telling you how, as a motorist, you can arrive alive every day when you hit the road. Do you check your tires for leakages or take it for granted? John Abumenta is an automobile. Jacob Abumenta is an automobile technician with Top Tech, and he shares some tips.
After checking through all the 4 tires, another thing you need to do is to go down and look under your vehicle for leakages, like something like this. You need to bend down like this and look out for leakages. What leakages are we looking out for? Your coolant, your engine oil, your brake fluid as well. These are the leakages we are looking for.
Okay.
You go under, check, there is no leakage, then we can come into the bonnet and open it. All right. So
Can I ask you about the tie?
Right.
How do you know there is a problem? Apart from the checking for whether there's some leakage, I get that. But in terms of the tie itself, the pressure.
All right. So the tire pressure, looking at the tire physically, you can see that this side stays on the ground. So if the tire pressure is down, you would see this side of the tire protrude more. It comes out more. If it's more, then we need to top it up.
Okay.
After topping it up, you move it to the vulcanizer to check why the tire was down. It could be a puncture, a slow puncture. So they work on it and put air into it again for you. Another thing you should also check are for cracks and damages on the tire. You need to check for cracks and damages. If there is a crack on your tire and you do not check it, whilst you move on the road, because of the traction, this is made of rubber. The road itself is made of bitumen, which we call coal tar. The two together creates friction and it generates heat. The more heat that goes into the tire will allow your tire to blow out. That's how come someone will be driving on the road, the tire blows out.
And that has happened to me before at dawn on my way to work. Unfortunately, because the glasses are up and I was listening to music, I think it was a miracle that I heard something. And so I put the music off just to pay more attention to it. And I was so scared. Yeah.
It's very scary. When your tire blows out, it's very, very scary.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we're done with this, I guess we're all clear to open the bonnets. So this is Jacob taking us through the basic things that we all need to do before we move our vehicles, and this is all in order to help us avoid some accidents that we can prevent, basically.
So after the outside check, we come into the bonnet.
Okay, why is your bonnet shiny?
Yes, we did. We always do a steam wash.
Okay.
Once every week, we do a steam wash, so your engine becomes so clean and neat.
Wait, so I take it to the car wash and they wash it for me once a week? Is that the same thing you've done?
Now, let me just chip in. You remember he said a steam wash.
Yeah.
Now, with the modern vehicles, you don't just take it to the washing bay and then they use the water. No, this is steam, and it is made up of chemicals. Okay, and there are certain stations. I'm not promoting them. Certain stations that you go, tell them you want a steam wash, and that's what we do to our vehicles once a week to take the rust from the engine and then make the engine so clean. There's nothing like driving with a cleaner engine.
Okay, so steam wash once a week.
Yes.
Got it.
All right. So after we open our bonnet, there is no systematic way of checking it. You can check from anywhere. But we are going to start with the engine oil first.
Okay.
First of all, this is what we use in checking the engine oil, which we call dip stick. That is a dipstick. All you need to do is you need to bring it out, and you wipe off the very first oil you see on it. Some people bring it out, all they do is check and fix it back. But you need to wipe off the very first oil. Okay. Why do you do that? The reason is, during the day as you use the car, the engine oil is a little bit thicker. So when heat gets to it, it melts. So it becomes more. So if this is where we use in checking the oil. You can see L and F, which is low and full.
That was Jacob Abumensa with Top Tech. He's an automobile technician. He was sharing those useful tips for you to drive safe to save lives. Now, in a related development, the controversial mandatory towing levy could be back as part of measures to address accidents on the country's roads. It is being proposed as one of the solutions to the numerous road crashes, which has claimed nearly 800 lives in the first 3 months of the year alone, with unattended, broken down vehicles and trucks on the highways, which have been identified as a major cause. An attempt to implement the levy requiring all vehicle owners to pay an annual mandatory towing levy was met with fierce protests, forcing governments to suspend it in 2017. But commercial transport owners today say they are in full support of the levy after a meeting with the Select Committee on Roads and Transport in Parliament. Joining us on phone is Ernest Frimpong Manso, known as Adakabre Frimpong Manso. He's General Manager of VIP John Transport. He was part of that meeting yesterday. Mr. Manso, what are some of the concerns you raised at the meeting?
Oh, really? At the meeting, good afternoon, I would say. At the meeting with the leadership of the Select Committee on Roads and Transport, the concerns that were raised by transport operators included but not limited to congestions on our highway. That's on a typical journey from Accra to say Kumasi, Accra to Takoradi. The bottlenecks on the road is such that you spend more hours than necessary on the highway, and that brings about excessive stress on drivers. So you can imagine if you are to evaluate a very stressful driver behind the wheels of a high-capacity coach, what are the implications? So we raised that, and then also the other concern was to do with bringing about dual carriageway. But then we did concede at the onset that the money may not be available, that we may need up to $4.something billion US in order to dualize from selected 6 roads. So if that money was not available, then first, as part of the education on defensive driving for drivers, we should also include how to share the road as we have now. We do not have the dual carriage, but we have the single carriageway. But drivers should be taught or should be educated on how to share judiciously what we have now. And then also in the medium term, we could also begin to look at situations where every 10 miles or every 15 kilometers, we could have a dual lane where, having followed a slow-moving vehicle for quite some time, there would be an opportunity to undertake a lawful overtaking. And then also the issue was about not knowing so much about what is happening in the commercial sector. So the Chamber of Transport was to come about to bring about respect, advocacy, and data collection in that area. Then also the toll levy also came about, and the concerns were that at the onset of it all, there was going to be a uniform payment between all classes of vehicles. And subsequently, at the time of implementation or the proposed implementation, there were segregation where private vehicles were to pay this much, certain classes of commercial drivers to pay that much,
and then high occupancy coaches to pay that much, and articulator drivers also to pay that much. So these were some of the concerns that were raised, and we were assured it will be looked into by the select committee and then put before the transport minister, and also have a second meeting involving the transport ministry, parliament, and all transport operators.
Okay, so two key issues that we want to quickly touch on. The first is the dualization of roads. You mentioned that it will cost north of $4 billion. Was that figure arrived at by, which party did the evaluation to arrive at those figures?
It was a kind of information about by the chairperson of the select committee on roads, where he talked about a meeting he had attended and the critical need to dualize 6 specific highways, and of the 6 specific highways that were to be dualized, we were going to need in excess of $4 billion to do that, and was wondering, or was asking the meeting to wonder as to where we could immediately source the over $4 billion.
Right. So was there any sort of solution that was brought about to maybe gradually construct these roads, for instance?
Yes, and the solution is part of what I had indicated earlier, that drivers, as per the 5 regulatory directives that the Road Safety Authority has brought about, of which the 5th one was to culminate in the refresher drivers course for commercial drivers from July 1. As part of the curriculum, we were then asking that drivers be taught as to how to share what we already have on hand.
Right.
Because we don't have the money, we have the single carriageways, and then we could devise means to share the road as it is now. And then in the medium term, begin to talk about the 2-1, where we could have up to every 15 kilometers, there could be a dual road that we could use to overtake slow-moving vehicles.
Right. So on the issue of the Road Tow Levy, you mentioned the challenges that were raised when it was proposed in 2017. Have you developed any modifications to that particular proposal that was made that you would agree to pay?
Yes, yes. I mean, with the toll levy, as I said, we had some of the members, like the Alhaji Tanko, who were at the initial meeting before 2009, and they were told at the time, and then he brought this to the notice of the whole meeting yesterday, that we were to pay 40 cedis a year, irrespective of whatever class of vehicle it was. So at the time of implementation, there weren't enough consultation amongst transport operators. And also, as part of the solution, we were asking for a distinction between highway users, that commercial vehicles tend to use the highway more than the private vehicles, and that private vehicles tend to use the city or urban roads more often. And that if we had made that distinction at the time, then private road users in the urban areas would, their voices wouldn't have dwarfed that of the commercial drivers, to the extent that now commercial bus operators or commercial drivers are desirous of protecting their passengers on the highways, protecting their drivers, protecting their drivers' mates in such instances. And given the fact that recent time, when you are involved in any emergency, and road safety management services, who do have all their equipment at the various police stations along major highways, when they come to the scene, either to tow or to recover, the cost of recovering a particular bus and then towing it to, say, 1 kilometer to a police station, it does not cost us less than 3,000 cedis. And then when you just suppose that with the fact that we were supposed to be paying, say, 80 cedis a year for a particular bus, and we don't pay, and our voices are dropped,
right?
The private operators say that then having to pay 3,000 cedis becomes a challenge.
Right, right. Right, Adakabre Fripoma, so thank you very much for joining us on the Pulse this afternoon. And we wrap up with the human rights group Amnesty International and some human rights lawyers in the country who have intensified campaigns to put pressure on government to, as a matter of necessity, have the death penalty abolished in Ghana. According to Amnesty International, 160 persons are on death row in the country's prisons, awaiting authorization by the president to have them executed. Richard Kojonyako has more.
155 men and 5 women are currently in Ghana's prisons awaiting execution. The participants at this year's launch make a strong case for the abolition of the death penalty in Ghana's criminal code. A research fellow and an international board member of Amnesty International, Dr. Vincent Ajali Mensah, says Ghana has to follow other countries that have abolished the death penalty. He indicates Amnesty International has begun building a strong advocacy base to galvanize support to put pressure on government to abolish it.
Assuming that Ghanaian society, there are lots of people who are against the abolition of the death penalties, up to the leadership of society and those of us who have the benefit of having some eye-openers and know the effect of this kind of law. We have to take leadership and provide that leadership to the ordinary Ghanaian to understand that society needs to move on. Culture is something that must change. Laws change, society changes, and it doesn't change because the majority of it wants to change, but because we think that this is the best way to go.
Private legal practitioners Martin Pebu and Francis Xavier Sosu, who were also participants at this year's launch of the report, say the time to abolish the death penalty in Ghana's statute books is now.
All our neighbors, Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, Togo, have all abolished. So we are the lone star, lone rangers in the middle of all these countries. So it tells you that it's not a good sign for us. Let's do it. I've been to Nsawam a number of times, but each time you don't get it. They just say this is condemned, so you need extra access, extra permission to be able to see them. So it tells you that they are held under different conditions. Okay, it amounts to torture because for them, because of the limited access they have to the world and all that, please, it's mental torture. You see, visitation, that's to say that their families being able to visit them and all that are almost non-existent. Okay, so those are the reasons why we should say that yes, though since 1993 we've not executed anybody, we should just go ahead and take it out of the law books. Let's amend the Criminal Offences Act to remove the death penalty, at least for 95% of the offences.
In this day and age, punishment has transformed from being retributive to reformative. And so the reason for which we punish people is not just because they have committed offense, but because we want to reform them. And if that is a reason, you cannot bring a dead person to life by simply killing another person. There are many people who get themselves involved in this killing who suffer serious trauma as a result of getting involved in this killing. So I think it is time as a country for...
And that brings us to the end of this bulletin of the Pulse. My name is Daniel Dazi. Many thanks for joining us. Up next is Let's Talk Showbiz. Have a good day.